Welcome to Jump Shots from the Goal Line. I'm your host, Jonathan Dugan. I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Mr. John Henningsen. John, it was a big week, right? I mean, we had tons of sports stuff going on. We had a lot of different things, but more than anything, it was kind of a big week for you, wasn't it, pal?
Yeah, it definitely was. We took a trip to Portland. My girl has some family up there.
Oh,
We got engaged, so that was a part of the trip. So very exciting.
woo! Yeah,
And
golf
so yeah,
clap.
man, I'm welcoming. I'm walking into your world here soon. I'll be one of
Yeah,
those guys. Whatever, I forget what the word is, but
I think it's
um,
husband, maybe.
yeah, that might be it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so eventually going into that, and within, I'm obviously very excited, but I would say like within 24 hours, it was already talk of planning. So,
You're like, I'm out.
and yeah, and then like strangely enough, that like I had a lot of friends, and I'm not trying to jump ahead here, but strangely enough, I had a bunch of friends like sending that textbook clip of Mike Leach talking about, she's going to go crazy, and then her mother's going to go crazy, and your mother's
Yeah.
going to go crazy, and the in-laws are going to go. And so, if we had no idea at the time, I was just kind of laughing at it, just a good old clip where that was going to ultimately go. But yeah, very excited, man. And
Yeah. And
I
we'll
know
we'll jump
you.
into that for sure. But first of all, that clip is completely true. I've been married twice. Yep, I'm that guy, and both times extremely stressful. But luckily, we as husbands, usually the wives take care of it all, right? Or the fiancés in this aspect, they take care of
Right.
all of it. If you do try to insert your opinion, you're wrong, or it's whatever the option B is. So just go whatever you think your girl would like, or maybe what she wouldn't like, and that way you're setting herself up to feel like she's right, and she just picks what she would have picked anyway. That's the best piece of advice I can give you. But congratulations, sir. I've known you a while now, and I know this has always been within the cards. Always a thought on top of the mind. Definitely always been the plan to do this. So I was super excited to see it. I didn't even know this was going to happen. I'm your freaking podcast co-host. So very well done, sir. You kept it from everybody very well. I'm super, super excited for you guys. I love Chelsea. So it's awesome, dude. Do you want to divulge how you did it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can. And I'll say too, just so you like, nobody knew. Like, I didn't tell
Yeah.
anybody. So like no one in the world knew. Like, my mother didn't know. Most of my friends that I've known for years and years. I had one friend that knew because I actually mailed the ring
The
to his
hardware.
house. Yeah, so like he was in the know because of that simply, and for that reason alone. But
Yeah.
really, no one knew.
Which is
And,
the
and like I
best
said,
way, by the way.
yeah, I mean, I thought so. I don't know. I mean, I don't. This is like I hate all this stuff, like, which is part of why, like, I just don't enjoy like any of it.
Yeah.
But we were at like the International Rose Test Garden or whatever it's called, which is kind of a weird time of year because really in Portland it's just like damp, dreary, wet. It just kind of happened to be aligned with the timing, like the way things are coming
Yeah.
up. I just kind of wanted to get it off my plate, if you will, and the trip was good enough. So it wasn't all planned out, but I did spend the entire weekend like carrying a ring in my pocket, like kind of like waiting for some sort of like, hey, this
Opportunity.
like, yeah, like we're like we have some privacy, like we have like a moment because like I don't think there's I can't. I mean, maybe you feel differently, but for me, like I couldn't think of anything more awkward than like dropping to a knee and then like having to say something and like come up with something like clever to say or what have you.
Yeah.
So but we ended up like in a nice area. It was beautiful. Nice. I was like, hey, finally, like we're at a place where this is fine. I mean, I'd probably reached into my pocket like 3 or 4 times previously, but it was just always wet and cold and like
Yeah.
pissing rain and all these different things. And then she had family around us, which is like cool. And I really didn't care that I kind of wanted them to be a part of a celebration in some ways, but it's also awkward, kind of like having that moment with other people around. So.
Yeah.
Um, the long and short is I dragged it out, even longer than I should have. So, kind of carrying a ring around like an idiot inside of a rain jacket for 3 days, to finally kind of find a moment that suited me well enough to feel comfortable to like, all right, now we can like go for this. And then the rest is history, I guess.
Dude, incredible, man. That is seriously super cool. I'm sure you're excited, but at the same time, again, I've known you for a while. You and Chelsea have basically been married for as long as I've known you. So
Right.
nothing really to change except, she potentially takes your last name. I don't know what you guys are working out with that. If
I
you're
was going
really
to take
going to,
hers. I'm super progressive house.
yeah, dude, hey, and that's your right. So, if you're really going to honor our boy Mike Leach, you should definitely elope.
I
He
know. I'm
he was
trying, dog.
he was a staunch advocate of, hey, don't waste your money on a big party for everybody else, right? So, which again, we'll jump into some Mike Leach stuff, but no, dude, that's super super awesome. I couldn't be more proud of you. But yeah, dude. Other than that, how was the trip?
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, I've been up there before. I've had family that lived up there. Last time I was up there, that was actually for a cousin's wedding. So it had been a while. And I mean, it's a cool area, man. If you've never been, I will say like the one thing that was weird that just like kept coming up, and like every person we told, oh man, like the homeless, and it's then this and that, and
Yeah,
you don't feel safe. Head on us. Okay, I saw none of that. Like literally nothing. I'm not saying that I didn't see a homeless person or that I never saw a camp along the side of the road that maybe you felt a little sad about. But the reality of like people telling me head on a swivel, look out, and all this stuff, like I really don't know what you people are talking about. It was fine. It was like a city. There's downtown areas. Yes, of course. Like there's people that are down on their luck. I really haven't run into a city where you might not see that yet. So I'm not really sure what that's all about. Maybe we weren't in the right areas or something, but
or you're in the right areas, is what you're
yeah,
trying
we're in
to
the
say.
right areas. But I mean, like we were downtown. We went here, we went there. Like it's a great, it's a good brewery scene there. It's a lot of different like neighborhoods and nooks, and they all kind of have their own little vibe. I wouldn't recommend driving there. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's kind of
Very
weird.
walkable city, right?
Very walkable, bikeable town. Bikeable is probably the better way to go, and you can use public transit there too, which that we didn't get involved with. But I don't know, man. It's a cool city. I mean, I would recommend it if I think for us desert guys, right? It's always just nice to get a change of pace in the Northwest.
For sure.
I think I still slightly prefer Seattle, but it was
Okay.
close, man. It was really close. They're both, dude. It's just all the greenery. Like it's such a change of pace from the desert, and obviously we get excited because we have all this rain, and the desert looks really green right now. But then you get there, and it's relative.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Did you hit up Voodoo Donut?
We did not, but we did hit a donut place. So, like, I don't know. If you ask the locals or people around there, they're kind of like, oh, you don't have to go to this or that. Or like, or you don't have to do this or that. Like, this is just as good.
Yeah.
So, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But we didn't wait into the long lines for the ice cream shops or the donuts. We kind of just
Yeah.
went to some other places that were some of those quote unquote competing brands. And I mean, I had some good donuts when I was there. I'll say that.
Nice, dude. And you know what? You did the right thing. You always listen to the locals, right? Don't get caught up in the tourist traps. I mean, that can be fun too, but I'm sure you probably got some really good eats, had a good time, obviously got engaged. So sounds like a hell of a trip, man.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, no, it was a good time, no complaints. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had like some funny anecdote to share, but really all it is just like it was just a nice trip. It was chill, and it was but it's really cold. Like I mean, I would say if you want to go to Portland, probably maybe not December, probably not the time.
Maybe
Like I'm
springtime. Yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking the rose garden full of roses as opposed to just the ones that are hanging on. Probably a little
For
nicer.
dear life. Yeah.
Yeah, there's still some hanging in there, but it's not nearly as impressive as what the pictures may show.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. That's good to hear about the homeless situation. Maybe it is because it's like winter that maybe that's why it's not too bad. The only time I've ever been like kind of like uncomfortable with like homeless populations was in San Francisco. That was insane. The very aggressive homeless people, and they are everywhere. But anywhere else, dude, I mean, kind of what you're describing, it kind of almost sounds like how San Diego even is, right? We think of San Diego as this
Yeah,
beautiful city, but dude, they even have their parts where that's where the homeless are, but they don't really bother you, you know? So, good
exactly.
to hear, man. I'll have to make my way up there. We've mentioned him a few times, and anybody that has listened to this show long enough, we talked to both SEC guys about it. We've gone on record ourselves, kind of, professing our fanhood for the great late Mike Leach. Mike passed away, unfortunately. I believe, when was it, Henny? On Monday? That sounds right. Might have been
Yeah, I think
yesterday.
so.
Yeah,
I,
Monday or yesterday. Had a massive heart attack in his home. They air vac him to, I believe, the capital there in Mississippi. I think Jackson. But Mike couldn't hang on, and he's now on a pirate ship, in the sky. So I know I was pretty down in the dumps about it, just because even though he's never coached one of my teams, I don't think there's ever been a more genuine human being when it comes to the coaching profession, right? An innovator when it comes to the air raid, really helped introduce that whole concept of offense to the college game. But I think more so just known for being just an awesome, awesome dude when it came to treating the media nicely, and came to treating his players great. He's going to be very, very sorely missed.
yeah, dude. I don't know. Like this one, just like I mean, we've all. I mean, it's like you said, we talk about it on this podcast like all the time, right? Just because there's like no one who's more genuine and fun in like their little sound bites, right? He feels like he's having fun during the games, like
Yeah.
just generally the vibe, right? Even him like flipping over the chairs or whatever. He's upset, but like he obviously
It's
has a sense
also
of humor about it. Like that's a
playful.
funny,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a funny thing to do. Like, I mean, you can take it seriously if you want to, but I think a lot of what he did, like, certainly had like he knew he had a wit about him. So I don't know. It like genuinely made me sad, and it's really weird because like there isn't that direct connection, right? It's not like a player that was on your team where you had that jersey. Like there's no real reason for me to be attached to Mike Leach. So, I mean, although I certainly remember like Crabtree making that play at Texas Tech, and
Yeah.
there are like moments, and there are like games, and there are like sound bites, and all these things that like you grow attachment to. But like I was like genuinely really sad about it, and man, just a tough one, and it just sucks for college football, just plain and simple, and especially since it really came out of nowhere. It just feels a bit more tragic, right? I mean, no reason to believe he had any health issues outside of the normal stresses of every college football coach, I suppose.
Right. Yep.
But I think just like the reaction, right? Like I'm deep in college football Twitter, at least I feel that I am. I'm sure there are people that have gone deeper, but I mean, it's like to a man, right? Everybody had a story to share, an anecdote to tell, just something that just like made you like laugh or what. Like Lane Kiffin's comments were really awesome. Like
Very
there's just some people
heartfelt.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, there were some people that just really hit some great notes with it, and it's just dude, just a tough one, and it's a tough one for the podcast. I'm really glad we had Braden on to share like his little
The
like
story.
story about him like coming back from the pool in between the little breaks in their interview or whatever.
Yeah.
Such a good share, and I'm really glad we pried on those things because it made me feel a little more close to him, and certainly just have a little something to take with us as he moves on.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, he's a hell of a story, because I obviously, since his passing, there's been a lot of, just like you said, right? Little anecdotes, stories of, his life. And I had no idea that. I know he played high school football, but then he didn't play college. So he's one of those guys, right? Just a brilliant mind. It's not like he's coming from, pure experience. He wasn't this awesome NFL athlete. He wasn't even a college athlete. He was just a smart cat. And like to hear him talk about how he went to law school, got his law degree, he got his master's. One of my favorite kind of bits that he did was when he was at Washington State talking about student loans and how they're just such a scam. And he talked about how he would literally go to school to defer his loans, because as long as you're in school, you can defer them. And then he'd also be teaching just a couple classes to make some income. And he just kept doing that. And then he decided to go and get his law degree, so he could continue to defer his loans, even though he's adding more to the loan. And while he's in school, he's starting to get, those freaking bill collector phone calls. and the guy's threatening him, just being kind of a real prick about it. And he tells him, well, you can go ahead and try to find me, but I'm gonna be in Mexico. You won't find me. I'm gonna drop off the grid. And he literally said that he didn't pay off those student loans until he was in his second year at Texas Tech as a head coach. And just, him talking about just the realism of that, right? Like, he was just such a real, genuine dude. There's so many stories about, these reporters that they were nothing. They were like how you and I are, right? Just upstart doing something, maybe as a hobby, or maybe you're just doing, you're a junior in college trying to get your journalism degree. And, they had the confidence and the gall to ask Mike Leach for an interview, and everybody talks about how he never turned down an interview, and he would give them this awesome advice. One girl talked about, hey, Mike, can I just, go on a walk with you? And he said, yeah, bring your best shoes. And it's just that type of thing, right? Like, he was never better than anybody. He was never unapproachable. He would answer any freaking question in a press conference. One of my all-time favorite one of his bits is when he's talking about the mascot battles in the Pac-12, and just hearing him wax poetic about why a duck would get disinterested and fly away, and how a buffalo is going to be tough to tangle with. Like, it's going to be so sorely missed. We posted a video on the TikTok about him talking about Halloween candy, and somebody like my wife, who could not care less about football, laughed out loud at a video like that. And that's just, he was kind of the great uniter, right? Like, anybody could appreciate Mike Leach.
The TikTok.
Yeah, the TikTok.
Yeah. I was like, welcome the youth back into our podcast.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, that's it. I mean, I think it's funny too, though, just even you mentioning like calling them bits, right? Because that's really what they were. Like, I mean, more or less, right? Like, he was just going on these rants. And so, I mean, it's just going to be missed, dude. Yeah, it's going to be missed. And the one thing I'll say too, that I don't know, like, I don't say that I'm like on one side of the fence or the other on it, but I know there's kind of like this push already to try to get him into the Hall of Fame. And there's like some sort of rule where you have to be at 60% or what have you.
Yeah. And he was at 59.7.
Yeah. And it's like, of course, he's like one win away or whatever. But I would say, like, whether they change the rule or don't, I almost like, there's almost a part of me that like hopes they don't change the rule, because then they can just keep bringing him up all the time. Right. Like, and who's still not in, and then just like keep him alive as long as, sometimes those things work out in your favor, right? It almost keeps you alive longer than becoming just a number in the Hall of Fame, especially like the College Football Hall of Fame. Like, I have no idea who's in that thing. I mean,
me either.
I assume lots of great coaches and lots of great athletes and all of this stuff. And, if it means something as an honor to his family or something, then for that reason, I would root for it.
Yeah.
But beyond that,
he could care less, though.
Exactly. Like, that's what I was going to say. I'm like, but he probably doesn't care. And honestly, like, the longer he kind of just stays on the outside looking in as like the best coach to never get in, or the most impactful guy in college football to never get in, like, maybe that keeps him alive a little bit longer, and we can continue to circulate these stories that never cease to make me laugh and get me excited for college football every year.
Yeah, dude. That's what's going to bum me out, right? Because I always looked forward. I don't care about SEC Media Day one bit, but I did care to hear what Mike Leach had to say, because it was always something funny, and it's kind of ironic, man. Everybody's doing video compilations, right, on TikTok, on Instagram, whatever, of this guy's awesome quotes. And it was funny, one guy was doing the walk with him because, I referenced it before, but he would walk to campus every day when he was at Washington State. And the guy literally asked him, Mike, when you do pass away and, you're leaving behind your legacy, what would you want your obituary to say? And he said, I don't care. I'm dead. That's up to you people. That's for you guys. And like, that's why I'm saying, man, like even the Hall of Fame debate, like you exactly said, dude, like Mike Leach would be the last person to stand on a soapbox and be like, throw me in, put me in the Hall of Fame. He didn't do it for that. He did it because he loved the game and he loved people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it, man. I think I thought your note was really nice, right? Like, to the pirate. I'll say the one lasting thing that I took away too is I forgot about this, but he had a random clip on Friday Night Lights where he's talking to the coach and his whole thing. And, his book was Swing Your Sword or whatever.
Yes.
And he basically says to him, like, you're doing it like this. And like, go out there and swing your sword. And like, hey, you might be the luckiest guy in the world and might not know it. and I don't know that Mike Leach wrote that or if he was just reading those words in a great acting stint there, but I just thought it was really like a cool little takeaway. So if you're taking away something from Mike Leach, swing your sword.
Yeah, in all things, man. That's a great ad. The only last thing I'll add, and then we'll move on. If you guys are ever just looking for a really funny story about Mike Leach, The Athletic, if you guys are subscribed to it, they have a really good story that his quarterbacks talk about what it was like to be in the quarterback room with Mike Leach at Washington State. And it's hilarious because they said that they would have to like multiple times tell him to like focus on the game film and stop talking about random things, which is the most Mike Leach thing ever, right? And anytime they break down film, the quarterback would be like, if it's Gardner Minshew or whoever, like, coach, like, what do you think I should have done here? Like, if it's an interception or an incompletion, he's like, well, yeah, you see here, that guy you threw to wasn't open. Throw to the open guy. And they're like, okay, well, what do you think I could have done differently? Or like, how could I read the film better? He's like, there is nothing you could have done better. Just next time, throw to the open guy. And it's like, that's the thing, dude. Like, this guy was like the architect of some of the best offenses we've ever seen, right? You mentioned the Texas Tech back with Mike Crabtree. His offenses when he was at Oklahoma were awesome as the OC. Washington State had a huge run with him. And even, this past year, we were lucky enough to watch him play Arizona. And his offenses are always insane. And when you stop and think, this dude is such an offensive-minded genius, and he's telling his quarterbacks, nothing like crazy, just throw to the open guy. It's like, that was just the brilliance of Mike Leach. And I'm going to miss him. You're going to miss him. I know a lot of people, like you said, have been all over social media just talking nothing but good things. The Craig James stuff never comes up because nobody gives a shit. He's a spoiled brat anyway. All that you can think about that man is just how genuinely awesome he was. So, Mike, we know you're out there on a pirate ship. We love you, man, and we'll miss you. So, awesome. So let's move on to the next topic. We'll stay in college football. There's a big day today for college football. The California Board of Regents is going to go ahead and allow UCLA to move to the Big Ten starting in 2024. So they're going to be in the Pac-12 for one more season. I guess, I don't know, Henny, I'm sure you read up on a lot of it, but I guess the main sticking point, at least what the Board of Regents was trying to make the sticking point, was the safety of the athletes by traveling back and forth and being over encumbered by that nonsense. What were some of your thoughts on them finally passing that?
I'm just glad one way or another we're moving on from it. I was kind of worried they were going to get stuck. We'd be in limbo and the whole thing would just get messier. And at this point, regardless of what side you're a fan on, as by the way, UCLA is like absolutely trouncing Maryland in basketball right now. So this is what you wanted, Big Ten. Enjoy. But I'm just glad it's like we're moving on from it. I thought there was some interesting things about I guess they're going to have to make some sort of commitment still to like the Cal system in terms of like money will be going from the Big Ten to some of this, like Cal, like is still going to benefit from this, I guess. So I thought that was like just interesting and really weird. Like UCLA will end up paying Cal somewhere between $2 and $10 million for leaving without them. So there is some sort of like penalty, I guess.
It's the most California thing ever.
Yeah, like of course, like they're like, yeah, but you like I know it's you, but like you still got to share. So I mean, I thought that was interesting, but I mean, shoot, man, this has been what was coming. I didn't know if like the Regents really had much power to hold it up, but I just know that the story kept kind of dragging on, and I think for the most part, dude, I'm just happy like we're just moving on from at least this piece of it, and I know the movement's going to continue from other programs and other conferences, and we'll probably never be out of this swirl. I'm just glad it's done.
Yeah, dude, I completely agree with you. Like, I was tired of just hearing about it. It's funny, you never heard the Cal Board of Regents talk about USC, which I don't know what the difference is between USC and UCLA, or is it?
So USC is private school, and UCLA is part of the UC system. So they're adherent to the state. Board. Yeah, so kind of like Grand Canyon University would be, kind of out of the Arizona system. It's on its own and autonomous.
Okay. Yeah. So, farewell UCLA. I know this past season was the last time Arizona was going to play them. So, I will miss the Rose Bowl atmosphere because it is kind of
Yeah.
hollowed and, it's even though they don't typically have a lot of fans there anymore, it's still, dude, it's hollowed ground, right? It's one of the oldest stadiums in the country. It'll be interesting to see how UCLA does going to the Big Ten. They played really well in what I thought was one of the toughest conferences in college football this year, with 6 ranked teams. Don't let a Georgia fan tell you otherwise. Pac-12 was tough, dude, and now the UCLA is gonna play one more season in the Pac, and then they're gonna have to go up against some big boys in the Big Ten. So it'll be interesting. It's an end of an era. We've said it numerous times. It doesn't really feel right having UCLA not in the Pac-12, but now that the deed is done, I think you're probably going to see a lot of movement on the Pac-12 side, whether that's adding teams like San Diego State or it's teams jettisoning the conference, like the Arizona schools are contemplating maybe going to the Big 12. It's definitely going to get interesting in the next probably 6 to 12 months. I think you're going to see a lot of rumors. And you know what? I'm kind of here for it. I love the Pac-12. I grew up with the Pac-12, but I'm not here for one of my favorite teams to root for to stay in a dying conference. So it's going to get interesting.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's where, I mean, if you've been listening to us, I mean, really it just circles back to exactly what we talked about a long time ago. Yes, it's going to be interesting to see the LA schools in the Big Ten. Like, yes, at this point, like, you're just like, rip the Band-Aid off Pac-12, Pac-10, whatever this is. Like, let's just end it and move on. And like, if you're Arizona, like, let's just pull the ripcord and get the hell out of here and
Mm-hmm.
attach to a conference that's going to be alive. It's ridiculous to not be able to find your games on TV anyways. This conference
Yep.
has been trying to kill itself for what it feels like years. So like, let's just let it let's let it just be done. So like, I'm just kind of
Yeah.
happy to be moving on with it. But yeah, I just don't have much more to add other than it's definitely worth, I'm glad we've noted it and like want to point it out, but I feel like it's been talked to death to a point already.
Yeah, totally, man. And I mentioned Georgia fans on that little rant. Good Lord, Georgia. Like, I'll give y'all this. You guys ride so freaking hard for your team and specifically a 25-year-old quarterback that may or may not have belonged in the Heisman conversation. We on this podcast believe that he shouldn't have been. We put a video on TikTok from the last episode where we discussed Stetson Bennett not really belonging in the Heisman candidacy, and it ended up being our most watched video and our most commented video. And y'all came with the full brigade, right? The whole Georgia fan base was in my mentions telling us that we're an L podcast, that we don't know anything, that he led fourth quarter comebacks, and that the defense had nothing to do with it. His tight ends had nothing to do with it. It was all him. He just makes plays. He's a winner. And that the liberal agenda pushed Caleb Williams to the top. And that, Jesus, so many different comments. And you know what? I applaud you guys on having your boys back, but Georgia, let's be real, all right? Like Stetson Bennett is a 25-year-old quarterback, plays on one of the most loaded rosters in college football. Y'all can sit here and say the USC played in a weak conference. I just said we had 6 ranked teams in the top 25. You can say that CJ Stroud floundered in big moments. He also didn't. He also had big moments. You can say that USC lost to Utah twice. They sure did. You're right. But Utah's a tough team. At the end of the day, I think the right guy won. Caleb Williams was absolutely electric. I don't care how often you guys tell me it matters what they do off the field. Johnny Manziel won a Heisman, so that is a mute point. You can't tell me that matters. Caleb Williams, I don't care if he puts F Utah on his nails. He goes out there and he makes plays. He goes out there and makes plays that other quarterbacks don't do, including Stetson Bennett. He also led many a fourth quarter comeback. He also led a dominant offense. You guys wanted to tell me that, hey, he put up 50 points on this team and that team. Caleb Williams did too. All right. And yes, y'all play in the SEC, and we know how much love the SEC gets, and for good reason. It's an incredible conference. Nobody's disputing that. But what Caleb Williams did, he deserved the Heisman Trophy. Be real with yourself. If Caleb Williams was on that Georgia team, y'all would have been beating teams by 70 and 80 points. Okay? That team was absolutely loaded. You can't tell me the defense didn't play a part in it. It's one of the best defenses of all time. And that's with losing, 8 first-round draft picks last year, 7 first-round draft picks last year. Just be happy your boy was in the conversation. Be happy that y'all are going to the playoff. And yes, I get it. Caleb Williams isn't going to the playoff. That doesn't mean he wasn't the best player in college football. Stay out my mentions and just be happy that you have a great team.
Yeah, I just think it's hilarious. And I'm not like, I really don't care generally like what everybody else thinks, but like when every single person I know in college football is like, yeah, Stetson fourth, Stetson fourth, Stetson fourth. And really what that means is like, we're not even sure why he got there anyways. Like, it sounds like a lot of people would have had a lot of different folks that they would have voted for in that fourth spot. So like all the conversations about Hooker, all the conversations about Corum, like all those conversations were relevant, and that's really what it tells me. But the SEC vote got him enough in. I assume this is just like some salt from the fact that they kept giving away Heisman's to Alabama guys just because they were winning. You know what I mean? And it sucks at like the year where they're dominant, they didn't catch the break and they're not getting the Heisman Trophy. But look,
By the way, that did come up. Somebody said, well, Bryce Young won it last year on a loaded team, but that's because of the name on his jersey. Well, yeah, probably. But he also played out of his mind last year. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is what's hilarious too. Like Bryce Young might end up being, like if he's going to be a top pick too. Like there's going to be like once this is all said and done, some of these quarterbacks are going to go in the first round, and one of these guys probably is not. And that guy's probably wearing a Georgia uniform. Yeah, because by then he'll be twice as old as but he's going to be an older guy. He's tiny. He's going to be. I'm probably a solid guy, and he, who knows? Maybe he even earns a starting job someday. But the reality is, like, when it comes to, I don't even know. Like, really, there's no conversation to be had here, so I almost like don't want to address it. Other than like, I don't know, keep coming at us at the mentions for all I care. Like, it's pretty funny. Like, whatever. Like, go nuts. L podcast definitely made me laugh. Whoever said that, just credit. Yeah, that's just funny.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I don't know why. Just like because maybe because it's so cheesy, but definitely made me laugh. And I mean, it's good. We always ask for a reaction, and we're getting it. All we had to do is, tell you Stetson Bennett was average, which we all kind of know. And by average, we also mean really, really good. Like, we're like,
yes.
He's capable. We give him credit for the championship. If you listen to the whole conversation, which obviously we clipped our own stuff for TikTok, no big deal. But if you listen to the whole thing, we give him plenty of credit. No one says he sucks. We're just simply saying like he wasn't one of the best 4 players in college football this year, and certainly not most outstanding. I think the argument that's the funniest is like the integrity take for the F Utah on the fingernails. Like, dude, come on, guys. Like,
if that's the worst thing Caleb Williams ever does, do you realize how good of a person he is?
Like, come on. Just stop.
There's a reason why Stetson Bennett, NFL scouts are comparing him to Case Keenum. Okay? Caleb Williams is getting compared to Patrick Mahomes. Okay? Like, and that's not our comparison. That is NFL scouts. Okay? There's a reason, and John said it. There's a reason why every NFL writer that's not an SEC country was putting this guy 4th or 5th in the conversation. And when y'all come at me saying, well, Hendon Hooker's 25, yeah, he sure as shit is. He wasn't in the top 4. But you know what? Like, he also turned Tennessee into a number 1 team for a little bit in the country. And if he didn't get hurt, they might be in the playoff. So don't come at me that, well, so-and-so is this or so-and-so did that. Like, guys, we're not saying Stetson Bennett is a bad quarterback. It's in the clip. I said he's a good to average NCAA quarterback. And that is what he is. And don't tell me he's putting up 50 points. He's got 5-star wide receivers and tight ends and a 5-star line. Like, he did what he was supposed to do. And he's been in college football for 7 years. Like, guys, you're making the argument for me. So, yeah, you know what? I said stay on my mentions, but please keep it up. Go ahead. Tell me I'm spreading the liberal agenda. Tell me that I don't watch Georgia football. Guys, I watch college football every Saturday. I will watch college football on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I say it all the time on this podcast. John and I were the two happiest people in America that college football was starting. We interviewed a journalist from every conference, basically, and two from the SEC. We know SEC football. Believe us. There's a reason we said your boy was not top 4.
And for those of you Georgia fans that are out there just like attacking Caleb Williams, like, so integrity is weak, and then the second choice has been he's a running quarterback. Rewatch those clips. I would just say rewatch those clips, because I think there's a little bit more going on in that arm than he's just a running quarterback, quotes. So, yeah. I think we've said it, man. I think we've said our piece, and I think
I think we put it to bed. You're right.
You're right. We can't watch every single game, and I'm sorry we gave your tight ends and your defense and the rest of that roster so much credit. And I'm sorry it has to be divided somewhat equally, and you can't crown one king.
Guys, I watched a Georgia versus Missouri game. Okay, I watched Georgia football. I don't just watch them play Alabama. I don't just watch them play Tennessee, though that was a great game for y'all. I watched Georgia football. I love football. I love sports. I'm watching the damn games, much to the chagrin of my wife. Okay, so
and you're gonna win the title, so calm down.
Yeah, who cares? Yeah,
you're gonna win. You're gonna win.
And I guarantee the moment he wins another national championship, because he should, I'm gonna get 100 other comments on that same video, even though it's gonna be a month old at that point. And you know what? Go ahead and do it. He's still going to get drafted in like the 3rd or 4th round. Okay. That's just who he is. It's okay, guys. We're all going to live. We're all going to still root for Stetson Bennett. He's a fun story, but he's not the best quarterback in the country. Okay. He's not the best player in the country. So anyway, staying on the college football train, we are in the middle because we don't really have a whole lot of bowl games yet. The New Year's 6 bowl games aren't here yet. We're in the transfer like mania right now. Right. We're Arizona fans here. Stetson Bennett could definitely blow it up at Arizona. Absolutely. By the way. But we've already lost like 12 guys. So Henny and our heads are spinning because the transfer portal is what it is. You have guys like Justin Flo out there that was a perennial like top 5 recruit. He's in the portal. You have guys that blew it up, played incredible. They're going in the portal. Alabama, who recruits better than anybody, maybe outside of Georgia. Yes, there's your shout out. They had the most players in the portal in the first week. It's absolutely insane. The NIL has changed everything. College football no longer is what it is. It has free agency now. You shouldn't call it the transfer portal. You should just straight up call it free agency, because that's what it is. There's collusion everywhere. We all know about it. Teams are reaching out to players while they're still on their current team, offering them crazy NIL deals, right? We saw it last year with Jordan Addison to USC. And that's what it is. College football and the NCAA period will never be the same. And we're seeing it in full-blown effect this year, right? I think I saw a stat that for like every 10 NCAA football players, one person's going into the portal. And it's insane, right? Because there's only so many teams. A lot of guys are leaving their current situations for a litany of reasons. I said the NIL. It can be playtime. It can be image. It could be a inflated ego. It can be so many things why people are going into the transfer portal. And what you're going to see, and we've already begun to see it, we saw it last year too, is a lot of kids are going to hop in that portal and there's not going to be a home for them, right? And it's kind of sad, right? You're seeing guys that are playing in Power 5 conferences, and they're going to be playing for the Kent States or the UMass schools next year because they made a bad business decision. But it is, for at least this co-host, incredibly fun to watch. I love it. I think it's really cool. John, I know you're kind of on the other end of the spectrum with it. You've been watching college football longer than I, so you're used to the standard recruiting practices. What are some of your thoughts so far with this madness?
Yeah, this is just blowing my mind. I just don't know how to. I mean, I'm I'm happy that the kids have freedom of movement. So I have nothing against this. Like, go nuts, right? I just have no idea how to follow it. I think like this time next year, and I don't know, maybe we can find somebody that wants to come on and talk about it during this bowl season. Like maybe we should reach out and try to find some answers. But I think this is just a question I have to ask: is like, should I be looking at recruiting? Should I be looking at the transfer portal? Do I have to understand both? Can you build a program just off the transfer portal? I mean, maybe there's not answers to all these questions yet, but I just like don't know how to follow all of this. It used to be so much simpler when especially like right regionally, like Arizona's only going to recruit regionally. I know the schools in Texas that we're generally going to recruit from. I know some of the Nevada schools. I know the big Arizona schools. I know who we're going to reach from in Cal. Maybe we go out to Hawaii. Like I know and I understand. And so when I hear about a player from those areas, like I'm already familiar with the programs. I kind of understand what they do and it means something to me. I guess you could make the same case in terms of where these transfers come from, but it just like opens up the whole country in a different way and it just gets confused. And I just don't know how much energy I have to like put into it. It just feels overwhelming to me, right? It's kind of like that idea of like analysis paralysis kind of thing where I'm just like, there's just so much happening that it makes me like turned off by it. And I'm just kind of like, just tell me what the end result is. Like, did the transfer portal go well or did it not? Because as you mentioned, right, like Arizona's probably going to be in play for some big time transfers, but we're also going to be losing some players that I couldn't imagine. Like you don't normally lose players that are successful in your program. Like if a quarterback and a wide receiver have a great dynamic, it's pretty rare that receiver is going to leave, or at least that used to be the thing. So, dude, it's chaos. And like, I think at some point we just have to like, for me, I'm going to have to ask some experts to try to get some answers because I have no idea what is happening. I mean, I can course dig into it, but it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, you have, you kind of referenced it, right? You have like Dorian Singer who put up over 1,000 yards for Arizona last year as basically the second or third option for Jaden DeLora. He enters the portal. He's getting offers from everywhere. And you're completely right. 5 years ago, Dorian Singer doesn't enter the transfer portal, right? Because he's got to sit a year. It affects his draft stock. He's another year older. Now, college football is in a unique position where this NIL stuff is so new and so unregulated that guys like that can go chase a bag, right? He's a former walk-on, should be very loyal to Arizona, just had a career year. Doesn't matter though, right? Like now he can enter the portal, get offers from the USCs, the Miamis, the LSUs, all those big-time programs, get a sweet NIL deal, and potentially, enter more of the national stage at a bigger conference or a bigger team, and boost his stock, right? And you said it perfectly, John. You can't fault these guys for it. Go get your freaking bag while you can, because sooner or later, college football is going to be done cannibalizing itself with this stuff, and they're going to regulate it. Go out in the meantime and go get your bag. It is interesting though. I'm kind of a sicko. I pay attention to all this stuff way too much. I send John probably like 3 or 4 texts a day about it, 4 or 5 tweets about it, in his DMs. And he's just like, dude, I can't keep up with this, but I love it. I've always been really into player movement. Absolutely love the NFL draft, love NFL free agency. I love recruiting, and this just adds another layer to it. So I pay attention to it probably way more than I should. But a lot of teams are in a unique position. You saw USC last year pull in Jordan Addison, pull in Caleb Williams, pull in Taj Washington, all these different players, and USC went from an 8-5 team or 8-4 team, whatever they were, to being a game away from the playoff, right? And it's Lincoln Riley plays a big part of that, but it was also just the buying power that they had now that the market's open. Or you have a team like Arizona, just because I'm intimately, affiliated with it, that they go from winning one game over a span of like 23 games. They go into the transfer portal, pull in one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12. They pull in one of the best wide receivers, probably the best wide receivers out of the mid-major market. and they pull away a good edge rusher in Hunter Echols from USC, and all of a sudden, they're winning 5 games, which obviously isn't they're not a playoff team, they're not even a bowl team, but man, you talk about being able to flip the script when it comes to the success that you're able to have, and it's strictly because of the transfer portal. Granted, they pulled in a top 20, top 25 recruiting class with that too, right? So your question, hey, like, does recruiting matter anymore? I think ultimately it still does, because your depth is always going to be built off of the recruiting that you do. And you want to be able to still develop guys to the point where you don't always have to dip into the transfer portal, because that is such an unknown. But with that said, I've seen a lot of people already talk about, hey, if you have a kid that decommits, all of a sudden you have an instant upgrade option in the transfer portal where you can go get, a 3-year guy, a 2-year guy that played in the Big Ten, that played in the SEC, but had a guy ahead of him. And all of a sudden that 4-star, cornerback that you were recruiting that decommitted, it's not as big of a loss, right? Because you're bringing in an established guy. So it's definitely a cool opportunity, but it's definitely going to affect recruiting. I think you're not going to see teams fighting each other as much for these recruits. You're going to see them more so fighting for these established players in the portal.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it reminds me of the old JUCO stuff, right? But it's just like on steroids, like the old JUCO stuff is you would pull this kid and, oh, is LSU hiding these kids at this small school until they get their grades right? And then they're pulling up all these JUCO kids or whatever. And some schools always could do it right. But yeah, man, it's madness. I have nothing else to add other than chaos.
Yeah, I for one miss the JUCO days, because I went to a very prolific JUCO to get my gen eds out of the way. I went to Arizona Western College, which,
Yeah.
Randy Gregory went there, a few other guys, and that was really fun. Obviously, Last Chance U was an incredible show on Netflix that showed, those JUCO players, and it was always funny, dude, because obviously with me having some history with it, it was always funny to see those cats that maybe did their freshman year at like Tennessee or Nebraska or wherever they did their first year at, and they obviously flunked out or they got in trouble or what have you, and then they end up at JUCO. And all the JUCOs are in these really small towns like Yuma, Arizona, or Garden City, Kansas, or whatever. And you have these just enormous people that are incredible athletes, but they're just complete dumbasses, and they're sitting in math class with you, and you're just like, dude, this dude's going to be in the NFL in like 3 years, and he's sitting in my math class. So that was always a really fun dynamic that I miss. It's still kind of out there, but definitely not at the level that it used to be, because a lot of those JUCOs ended up kind of shutting up shop when it came to athletics, because the money's not there. So, but yeah, man, transfer portal has been insane. It's only going to get more insane. I think once bowl season is over for some of these teams, you're going to see even more movement, which is going to be madness. I'm here for it, John. You're going to continue to get 5 or 6 different tweets from me about the transfer portal, and we'll see what teams make some noise next year, dude. Because again, we saw it this year, right? So
Sure.
another team that we didn't even mention, right? Michigan State last year, pulling Kenneth Walker from Wake Forest, and he ends up being one of the best running backs in the country, and now is starting for the Seattle Seahawks. So yeah, man, it's an awesome dynamic. It's a cool dynamic. I'm here for it, but it's tough to wrap your head around for sure. Let's stay within the college atmosphere. It was a massive, massive day for at least us two and the rest of the fans of the Arizona Wildcats. Obviously, we've been going through this trials and tribulations the last 5 years since the FBI investigation happened with Sean Miller and the whole DeAndre Ayton situation and paying players and whatever, which is such a funny segue, because now, we're talking about NIL deals and this and that, and now it's completely legal to pay players within specific boundaries. But yeah, Arizona got into a lot of trouble 5 years ago, freaking wiretapping going on, getting, Sean Miller on a recording talking about paying players or
Yeah,
Book
allegedly.
Richardson. Allegedly, yeah, the only one
All
that
this
ever came
allegedly.
out.
Nothing was ever like none of this stuff. Well, at least none of the Sean Miller specific stuff really
Yeah,
was ever
the
come to the table.
the only one that ever did come to the table was the Book Richardson stuff, which was his lead assistant. He was definitely on recording talking about paying players, but he went to prison for what was it, a year, and now he has a 10-year show clause where he cannot coach in NCAA basketball for 10 years. Another assistant got, I believe, like a 5-year ban, and Sean Miller went unscathed. So Xavier Nation, rise up! Your coach is good to go. Um,
He did
and
vacate 50 wins from his record, so there was that.
true.
The dumbest thing that all of college sports will ever do to try to take away something that we all know happened.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the whole Reggie Bush situation again. We all know
Yeah,
he won the Heisman.
yeah.
He
Like,
just
tell me
doesn't
there
have
was
the
a better
trophy.
college football player. Yeah, go ahead. Tell me there was. Yeah,
It's just showing the NCAA being the most inadequate bunch of old white men that there is. That they have these investigations and these penalties, and it 5 years later it comes out that it's a nothing burger. Arizona comes out. They had to vacate the wins that happened. So, rise up Arizona. We never actually lost to Buffalo. So that was cool. And then they have to give up one scholarship and pay a fine. So
no.
for a FBI investigation, that is what happens. So just a weird situation.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the funny part is honestly, and you'll see it on whatever. I mean, if you're into college basketball, you'll see all that stuff floating out there. But if you just remember back to it, I actually remember this, and I'll never forget it. I was at my buddy's wedding when the story dropped from ESPN saying that they had, the wiretap of Sean Miller saying like, "Here, DeAndre Ayton, you can have $100,000," and Jay Billis fired Sean Miller 25 times, said we're the dirtiest program in the world.
Him and Dickie V,
Schlabach,
dude.
of course, Dickie V still won't let it go. He still just won't say he was wrong. He's out here defending our guy in Texas who's, again, allegedly in a domestic dispute, strangling someone in his own household.
Yeah.
Hey, let's wait for the facts on that, but was so quick and so happy to jump all over Sean Miller's ass and the University of Arizona. And I mean, and honestly, his Twitter has paid for it for the rest of his life. Dickie V probably hasn't tweeted anything in 5 years that didn't have about 5,000 Wildcat messages below it telling him to, I think we laid off. I'm glad he's, beaten cancer here. So I think we laid off in terms of, wanting him to be healthy. But any tweet about college basketball, he is absolutely going to get rained upon.
Yeah.
I don't even like. I just, and then the other part that, I mean, it's still going to drive me crazy and it's fine. We've moved on with Tommy Lloyd, but I still just contest that Arizona could have just said, screw you, NCAA, the same way Kansas did. Kansas has been accused of all the same things that Arizona was, and then some. And the only difference is ESPN chose to take a different angle on it. So it's just like a case of like, honestly, just F ESPN. Just like I just hate ESPN, and like it's part of like why I really try to do everything I can to avoid it. Outside of a couple things that. Like obviously I'm going to watch live sports on it and I'm going to be a part of certain things. I still love College Game Day, but the football version, basketball version can kiss off. But so just to put a nice day for Arizona to just kind of put it all behind us. And ultimately just to tell you that, again, if you're college basketball or college football, whoever, and you're getting accused of something, just tell them to F off and get off your front lawn because they really can't do anything. There's really nothing to see. They can't prove anything. Nothing's happened, even with the help of the FBI. Ultimately, all they could do is say, we gave one student a loan, which was paid back, and it's about a player that Keanu Pinder. I mean, no offense to Keanu Pinder, but if you're a college basketball fan and you don't know that name, and then obviously Raleigh Alkins was part of it. And he was actually a pretty good prospect, but dude, just so stupid. What a waste of everyone's time. Just like, dude, just, ugh. But anyways, I'm glad it's over. And I could just continue to slander ESPN, but I don't want a defamation lawsuit for our podcast. That would make us an L podcast because I don't know if we could afford that. But
yeah, there goes our future ESPN contract right out the window, but it's okay. Dude, I think honestly, like the true, I guess not punishment, but yeah, like the true thing that happened with Arizona, right, is when that story dropped, I think we had like the number 1 or 2 recruiting class in the country or something. And then all those guys decommitted. Homeboy ended up going, the one dude, what was his name? Can't remember. He ended up going to like Villanova, and then he went to Alabama. He sucked anyway.
Yep, I know
Sharif
exactly who you're
O'Neal,
talking about. Yeah, Sharif
yeah,
O'Neal. Yeah, what was
Sharif
his name?
O'Neal decommitted, and really the only loss there was that we didn't get Shaq at every game because that would have been cool. But all these dudes were pretty highly ranked, and unfortunately, the unknowing of what was going to happen, even though we all have seen it, that the NCAA is just going to bark and no bite. A lot of guys decommitted. It was hard to recruit after that point, and it was just kind of like 5 years of like, people not willing to commit to Arizona because they didn't want to, have a postseason ban or whatever, and people weren't sure if Sean Miller was going to get fired, which he eventually did, which, no love lost here for that. I think his career had ran its course anyway, and we're on to better and beautiful things anyway. But it did kind of paralyze the program for like 5 years, and I think that's probably the true consequence of the actions that occurred.
And I will say it was Javon Quinterly, and I
There we
will
go.
say it just was like driving me crazy. Hey Tommy, here's the deal though. Now is like you got to go recruit, right? So there is no excuse. I don't think he was ever making an excuse, by the way, and I don't think,
No.
but I do think the media still kind of sometimes was saying, oh, but they still have the cloud's gone now. We know exactly what it is. It's one less scholarship, and everything else is good to go. I mean, and honestly, one less scholarship is really not a problem in college basketball in this instance. Not for a program like Arizona. That means you keep one less Dylan Anderson around or someone like that. That's kind of, a developmental project. Like, and it could sting. It could potentially sting. It could be the difference. But
One less
really, no
European.
excuses. There is no cloud. Yeah, exactly. We know. Yeah, I can bet you what he's going to look like.
Damn it! Now we can't get our point guard out of Georgia.
Yeah.
you know?
So, but so now the gloves are off, man. Like, there's no excuses for Arizona moving forward. Like, clean slate. Just go play basketball. That should be the only story we're ever talking about. And Dickie B, dude, just get out of here. Lay off. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Leave us alone.
And I think I speak for both of us that I wouldn't have had a problem with Dickie V talking about it or Jay Billis talking about it if they would freaking talk about Kansas or Duke or
Yeah.
all the other teams that were doing all the same exact things. Louisville, yeah.
We could go on and on. Like there was so many teams that were named in this thing, and essentially the evidence was the same for most of them. Like there really wasn't, and all it is that like, dude, we all know this. The shoe companies are involved. This is no big secret. This has been happening for years and years and years and years and years. They've never been able to police it. And then and it's amazing. Like I have no idea how Coach K was such a good recruiter without having shoe money. It's wild, dude. Imagine
Weird.
being Duke and landing 5 of the top 5 ESPN kids without giving up one shoe dollar. And having guys switch in the last minute. And Calipari never once. It's insane. So, like you said, if there was just equal opportunity, it'd be whatever. You know what I mean? If you're just going to tell me everyone in the top programs is dirty, then yeah, duh. Like we know.
Yeah. And again, how did USC get away with this, by the way? Because like one of their lead assistants was also caught on tape and they got nothing. So just Arizona.
I'm telling you, yeah, it's just about what
got the
lawyers you
bullseye.
hired. And yeah, it's about what lawyers you hired and how you handled it internally. And I just think Arizona played a scared game when it came to that. And that's why I'm still kind of frustrated with this athletic department, because I thought they kind of just bowed down to a very weak NCAA. They did not swing their sword.
No, they pissed down their leg for sure.
Correct. But,
Yeah.
we're moving on now. So all good. Glad it's behind us.
Exactly. Well, let's stay in the state of Arizona. The NBA is in full swing. I think it was either the last episode or the episode before that we were singing the Suns' praises. And since then, they have completely shit their pants. So Chris Paul's back. He's not looking good. Devin Booker is out, and the Suns look like he's out. They were blown out by the Rockets last night. They've been blown out 4 or 5 different times this year. They are 16-12, so it's not like they have a losing record, but dear God, that team is cursed and they are terrible. And it's funny, right? I'll give you full credit, Penny. Like when we were talking about the Suns this offseason, You were even saying, I have no idea who any of these players are that they're signing. And guess what? That should have told us everything we needed to know, because as soon as a big injury happened, our bench, not having anybody adequate on it, started to show up. Um,
Yeah.
this team is the least deep team in the league. If they don't have Devin Booker, they are absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember saying after night one, we came back, beat the Mavericks, and it was nice. It was like a feel good. But I said at the time, I'm like, I saw what happened, and I'm happy, but I just don't understand how this is sustainable. And I think I stand by that statement. I think that's really how I feel more than anything, is just that there's just not enough firepower. Now, obviously, they're dealing with like some bad injury luck right now too, so that's part of it, and it's part of the NBA season. And I do think, as a healthy team, this is still like a solid playoff team. But, there's a reason I've been continually pounding on the table of like, there has to be a bigger move, or at least a substantial, like, it doesn't even have to be the big, like, of course we were talking about the KD stuff in the offseason. And if somehow we could pursue that, something even of on par with that, right? At some point in my world, I was like, oh, maybe we could get SG. I don't know if any of that's possible, but this roster is just bad. So they either need to, like, they need to make a decision, basically, right? Like, either you are really going to go for this with Chris Paul one more year, or you could almost make the argument, depending on how the next month or so goes, that you could go the total opposite way, still keep some core pieces, but really move off some of these other guys and see if you can retool and rebuild next year. I mean, honestly, I'm not. It's too early probably to decide, but at some point they're going to have to make that decision with the trade deadline, as it comes near in a month or two down the road.
Yeah, I just don't know where they go from here, dude. Like, honestly,
It's
I
tough.
was talking to my buddy Adam about it, and like, you have a 38-year point guard that can't stay healthy, that can't score on his own at this point of his career. You owe him 35 or 30 million next year. Granted, he has only a halfway guarantee for next year, but even then, dude, like, you know, if you get rid of him, right, you free up 15 million. Um, and if you find a way to get rid of Jay Crowder, that's another 10. You get rid of Dario Saric, that's another 10. Cool. Now you have 35 million in the bank account. Well, you got to go sign another impact player. That much we've seen. Your bench is still shit. James Jones has showed an unwillingness to draft anybody unless his name is Jalen Smith, over Tyrese Halliburton. So I have zero confidence in this team going forward. There's not a move that can be made that's going to move the needle this year. The Nets are finally playing good basketball. They have a winning record, so Kevin Durant's not going anywhere. I can't think of another superstar out there that they could actually swing a trade for. If your best bet to improve this team is Sadiq Bey from Detroit, it's gonna be a tough season.
Yeah, the trades I'm seeing floated out there by the guys that are, following this pretty closely and are pretty good. I don't love any of it. I mean, like, I hate all of it. So from the optimism over the summer of thinking we could make, like I said, some sort of big time move, to now trading scraps for scraps, this is tough, man. I mean, this, like you said, I don't really see the path either, other than they do eventually need to get off the CP contract. And I do think, I mean, one thing we see in the NBA, though, I mean, the one reason I would say I'm not super down, although they do need to get the ownership thing figured out, because I think that's also going to play a factor in terms of the moves that they make.
Huge factor.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, that's kind of, potentially putting handcuffs on any real impactful move. If anything, you could just see a salary dump. But I guess the good thing there in the NBA that gives me some optimism is, if you keep the core of, like, let's say it's Mikal, Booker, obviously, which Booker, by the way, I don't feel bad about the MVP stuff. You see how bad the Suns are when he's not out there, guys. They're a lottery team and a half when he's
This
not
should
playing.
boost his MVP spots.
Yeah, like, I mean, he should. Yeah, I now moved him up to number one in my rank. Yeah, so what it feels like, because my God, are they terrible when he's not on the court. But if you can dump the salary, in the NBA, like, every season someone becomes available, and you think you can't move the Russell Westbrook contract, or the John Wall contract, whatever it is, right? CP is not a culture killer, so I mean,
No.
they should be able to move him. I would think, like, they might not get anything in return, But if you can dump the salary, get off of it, you still have a young core and you can retool that roster. So I don't think it has to be end times for forever. But as far as this season goes, like, boy, did that turn quickly. I mean, from
Yeah.
starting to believe a little bit and thinking maybe they could tweak around the edges of the roster to thinking like they got to tweak a little more than the edges.
Well, you know what? And we all knew we had a short window, right? When you traded for Chris
Yeah.
Paul and he was 36 years old, you knew you had about a 2-year window. In those 2 years, the first year they went to the finals, okay, they could have won that championship if it wasn't for Chris Paul getting injured, Devin Booker kind of having a hand thing or whatever his thing was, his hamstring maybe. Then the next year, kind of the same story, right? Like Devin Booker gets hurt in the first round. You have to rely super heavy on Chris Paul. He's 37, so he gets kind of worn out. And by that point, it's gone. And now we're seeing it, dude. Like that window was super short. We didn't capitalize on it. James Jones refused to draft somebody like Tyrese Halliburton that could, give those minutes back to Chris Paul. And there just wasn't a whole lot of great team building besides that Chris Paul move. And now you're in a situation where Jay Crowder doesn't want to play for you. Cam Johnson, who we all knew was going to get hurt eventually because that's just what he does, is out. Devin Booker has a perennial hamstring injury at least 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul got hurt because that's, again, what he does. Granted, DeAndre Ayton's playing fantastic, which, hey, we'll be the first to admit we didn't really see that coming a lot. You were more so on that side than I was.
$100,000 player, baby.
Yeah. But, this team just, they don't have a good bench. There's no real options in sight. You're not going to go get the garbage, top of the garbage bin type players when guys get bought out. Those guys don't really move the needle because there's a reason they're getting bought out. And it's going to be tough sailing. Now, in the meantime, the rest of the NFL landscape, the NBA landscape is changing, right? We're seeing teams like the Pelicans who look like the Suns from 2 years ago, right? Last year, they looked kind of like the bubble Suns, where they were this tough, gritty, upstart team. This year, they're kicking ass and taking names. Zion looks incredible. They could be a real dark horse to get to the finals this year. The Grizzlies look awesome. The Jazz are making some noise, which is insane, right? The Trailblazers have been great with Jeremy Grant. The West isn't getting easier and the Suns aren't getting better. And then the East, dude, the Boston Celtics are incredible. They damn near were beating the Suns by 60 points at one point when they played each other, right? And they just beat the Lakers when the Lakers had a 35-4 run and they still lost. Like, then also in the East, you have the Sixers that look good. You have a handful of teams that are really good outs, and all of those teams look better than the Phoenix Suns.
So someone really rich, please buy us. Let's get into the luxury tax and let's make some moves. Please.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos, please buy us. Fly your phallic rocket all over Phoenix. I don't care. But please spend some money. Put some people in positions that will make good decisions.
I've been a Prime member a long time. What else do I have to do?
I've earned this. James Jones, please, for the love of God, just actually draft somebody. Quit trading your picks for Landry Shamet or drafting Jalen Smith. Make a good decision there, pal. You got GM of the year because you signed Chris Paul and you went on a finals run. But outside of that, you haven't really done anything. So please, for the love of God, do something. The rest of the NBA has been a lot of fun. Like I just said, those teams that I mentioned have been incredible. It's still good basketball being watched, but just I wouldn't tune into the Phoenix market for at least a month or two.
Yeah, I'm good. Just don't watch us. It's fine. And I don't know. I'm almost I almost just want us to be terrible and except that if they keep James Jones around, I know he will draft terribly and there's no point. So,
dude, what's going to happen with James Jones if he gets a top 5 pick? He's going to end up just trading it for Kyle Kuzma anyway. So,
yeah.
or draft somebody like Drew Timme or just, somebody that's fundamentally pretty good, but not an athlete. He's basically the Tommy Lloyd of GMs. So bringing it full circle.
Oh.
Cool. Well, that's our basketball talk. Let's move on to the NFL really quick. We have a few storylines out there. Kyler Murray tore his ACL, non-contact injury, happened very, very early into that game against the Patriots. Man, Arizona as a whole, we've already been talking about, right, the NCAA investigations for Arizona. We've talked about the Phoenix Suns. Valley Sports, man, we're in the trenches right now. We're getting shelled. We're not looking good, right? Kyler Murray's out. Now we're starting Colt McCoy. Um, Cliff Kingsbury doesn't look like he knows what the hell he's doing, which no shocker here, right? Like for example, that play right before half. You're in field goal range. You can go up by 2 scores. You choose to not do that. Every football coach in America worth his salt knows you go for points with that much time on the clock. Rondale Moore's out for the season. Just it's not looking good, right? And then I believe that their GM just went on administrative leave for like mental health or something. So it's a shit show in the Valley right now, and it's insane. That team is not good at all. Their defense is average. Their offense hasn't been great all year. Um, I'm at a loss for words, right? Like this team went fully all in, completely all in on the offensive side of the ball, but only at certain positions. They went out, they traded for a tight end past his prime. He's out for the season. Well, I think he might have been active. No, he's out for the season. You trade for DeAndre Hopkins, which is still a good trade. He's balling. He's incredible.
Yep.
He always has
Yep.
been incredible. You go out and you trade for Hollywood Brown. He's dropping deep passes. He was out for a handful of games this season. You draft Rondale Moore, who was 5'7" coming out of the draft. He's out for the season. You don't beef up your offensive line. You ignore your defense outside of JJ Watt, who's hurt 75% of the time anyway. And this is what you get, right? You get a team that's incomplete and a team that can't compete, and you hire a coach that couldn't win in the college level, and you hope for the best at the NFL, and it's proven to be much of the same. So, Cardinal fans, I feel for you, but you guys should have seen this coming.
Yeah, my brother, who's a Cardinals season ticket holder, so we have that divide in the family. Some of us are Chargers fans. Some of us are loyal to the Arizona brand there, and they were a little younger and they latched onto the Cardinals. But he's a season ticket holder there, and he couldn't be more optimistic, right, about all things Cardinals all season. Like, oh man, we're just 1 year removed from the playoff roster. Like, there's no reason to get mad about this. There's no reason to get mad about that. Everything's fine. What? This team's still good. What are you talking about? What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And I know that this one just broke him. I saw the social media rants. He's officially off over it. It ended with something like, this ticket office better not make one phone call to me for some time. He's putting out veiled threats about canceling his tickets, just about canceling his tickets. I should clarify, not any sort of threats towards any people or any harm.
Yeah, nobody's in trouble.
He's locking up that wallet. He's putting it in the safe. And if the Cardinals ticket office is calling, he's not interested right now. And I can't blame him. The Kyler thing sucks. I'm not really. I'll continue to say it. I'm not really into Kyler, and I can be proven wrong because I can clearly see the immense talent there. But just like a vibes thing, I don't really get it. But yeah, for the Cardinals, man, that was just that's it. This is definitely done, and hopefully he comes back healthy. And I'm assuming, dude, their GM has been a mess for a long time. This is another organization that could use an overhaul. I guess that's all. That's it. Just sorry to my brother. Sorry, Jake. Man, hang in there.
Yeah, it'll maybe get better, but it is Valley Sports, so the Valley's cursed when it comes to sports. So
Freaking cursed. At least the Diamondbacks have a billionaire owner who spent $58 million this year.
Dude, the Diamondbacks
would have been good in '94.
Diamondbacks are the only winning team in the Valley, and that happened 21 years ago.
Yep.
It's insane, dude. It's absolutely bonkers. But you know what? We live where we live, and it is what it is. Speaking of quarterbacks, America's favorite talent, Deshaun Watson, has returned to playing football for the Cleveland Browns, and he has not been good. Shocker, right? He didn't play football for 2 years. He has this cloud above him, this self-imposed cloud. He has all his victims sitting in a skybox watching him play football. And he has not been impressive. The Browns are floundering. They're not going to make the playoffs for sure. I don't know, man. Like, I don't feel bad about it. I'm not saying I go into every game like, man, this is great. I love watching Deshaun Watson suck. But at the same time, I kind of am.
Well, you can't even really watch it because the NFL is like burying it anyways, and no one wants to touch this. Like the funniest thing to me, honestly, is the coverage. Is it's like the Browns have suddenly disappeared. Like the Browns
Yeah.
generally tend to be one of the most talked about franchises because they do have a very loyal fan base, and but I mean, on top of all the things you said and all the things that we discussed in the offseason and how gross we think this is and how disinterested we are in the Browns and how dumb this signing was and all the other things, the Browns go ahead and do the Browns thing anyways, and they're getting exactly what we thought they'd get. And dude, I mean, Deshaun, to my recollection, was legitimately one of the best talents in the league. And
I think I remember
that
that.
is
Yeah.
not happening. That is
No.
not happening at all. So I'm just assuming this is what karma looks like in the flesh.
Yeah. I mean, first game back, against the Texans, they win by 13. But if you look at the score, 21 of those points did not come from the offensive side of the ball. Two of them were fumble returns. Well, one was a fumble return and one was a interception by former Arizona Wildcat Tony Fields. And the other one was a 76-yard punt return by Donovan Peoples-Jones. Homeboy went out there through 12 of 22 against his old team for 131 yards and a pick. And that is against the worst team in the NFL, right? Make no bones about it. The Texans are awful. And they almost lost to him. And then, the week after that, they go to Cincinnati, who's a very hot team, and they lose by 13, right? And he didn't have a great game. He threw for almost 300 yards, but had a pick and a touchdown. Didn't have a great throwing percentage, completion percentage. He's not looking good. And I'm sure that part of that is being out of football for a couple seasons, but I'm sure a whole hell of a lot of it is he's probably a little bit distracted. So Deshaun, I want to say wish you good luck, but I don't.
Yeah, I think it's more of a sorry, not sorry situation, which I don't really like to use a lot, but I think it's a sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, I think it's just karma coming down, right? So,
Yeah.
staying within the NFL, your boy Herbert looking pretty damn good. The age-old debate from that draft, right? Tua or Herbert. Tua's had his moments this year, but he's not been good the last few games. That offense has been kind of figured out, and I think people have figured out that Tua can't throw past 30 yards, and they're just taking, they're putting a giant wall over that and making him throw flats to Tyreek Hill. If it wasn't for Tyreek Hill having a just insane fumble return for a touchdown, it would have been an even worse loss. But yeah, John, I mean, it was your game. You want to speak on it?
Yeah, I just think like the whole, I hope Tua does well. I have nothing to worry about with the Dolphins. Of course, was having like Tyreek Hill flashbacks from him being like, I'm like, again, this guy? Come on, dude, like on a fumble. Like, yeah. But as far as Tua goes, I wish him nothing but the best, but I just think it's funny for the two non-truthers out there that are just so pressed by the idea that people talk about Herbert. Like, they just love it. They have whatever has happened, like these two are pitted against each other and it really matters. And like, they are just so triggered by the idea that Herbert's good. But if you really watch games, you're crazy if you don't want Justin Herbert. Like, you're absolutely insane.
He's like incredible.
I am positive that if you flip these two from their organizations and give each other the other's offense and switch weapons, like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are nice. They are not Tyreek Hill. They just are not. Jalen Waddle's very nice. And I mean, but Tyreek Hill, I just have it plus, 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 plus. You can literally fumble to him and he might get you off for 65 yards. It's just a ridiculous conversation. And I was just glad to see Herbert win that one just because I just didn't want to log onto Twitter if people are like, see, Tua, because it's just illusional. Like, just the throws that Herbert makes and the decisions, the athletic ability, Tua's running a nice offense. Herbert is an offense.
Yeah, and it wasn't even close, right? Like Tua went out there 10 for 28, 145 yards and a tutty. Herbert went out there 39 of 51, 367 yards and a touchdown. Like not even in the same atmosphere, right? Like
And the throw he makes
Her,
in that for
jo-
that touchdown, Tua just probably can't make that throw. I feel like
no,
he's a really good version, or like on par with Jimmy G. Like it feels. I know they're in the same offense, so it makes it really easy, but it really is just kind of that intermediate throw. And you're just crazy if you don't want the big arm. I don't understand why you wouldn't want the big arm and the big guy who has been less likely to take the big hit and have it affect him and be out for a couple weeks as well. So
and Justin Herbert just makes things happen, whereas Tua has things happen for him. Is I don't know if I'm saying that right?
yeah,
But
no,
like,
we're both saying the same thing. It's. I mean,
yeah,
ultimately, what we're kind of saying, without wanting to say it, probably is that he feels like a system guy, and Herbert feels above what a system is. Like devoid of the system, Herbert is
Tua
going to shine.
Tua is definitely like the dink and dunk quarterback that throws it out to the flat to Tyreek, and then Tyreek makes things happen. Or Jalen Waddle puts a sick double move on, and if it's within 30 yards, Tua's going to hit him. Whereas Justin Herbert runs around the pocket like a madman and throws an absolute dart in a window that's like a foot or less and makes a spectacular play. So I'm with you, dude. Like you swap these quarterbacks and the Miami Dolphins might go undefeated. Like it's that simple. Like Justin Herbert's that much of a talent. And I feel bad for him because he's on a team, no offense, dude, but like perpetually has bad
Yeah,
luck with
not
injuries and
offended.
stuff. But what I will say is the Chargers seem to be kind of getting back on the horse a little bit, man. Like, he's got all his weapons again. The offensive line has been okay. Jamari Sawyer's been a really good backup plan for left tackle. The defense it's above average. It's not bad, right?
They had a good week,
You're
one
not,
week in a row. So
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah. I thought your
A
head
good
coach
plan, at
called it.
least. Yeah,
Yeah, he called an incredible defensive game plan against the Dolphins, which that's what he should do. He's a great defensive mind. And if he doesn't get in his own damn way when it comes to the offense or just weird, decisions, you guys are fine. And you're hitting your stride at the right time of the year. You guys are in the playoff picture, which hey man, like I think you guys are a good enough team that even if you go in as the last seed of the playoffs, like you play the Bills today, that's going to be a good close game.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the big thing is if Bosa can come back and be an impact player, that could be the difference. We still don't have a running game like at all. It's a zero. So that's like what you're getting out of the offensive line is that Herbert's a good decision maker and they can hold on just long enough. He really has cut down. Like his decision making's better. Like whatever you think of, because you saw him make a turnover sometime. It's because they were down and whatever. He doesn't just generally make careless mistakes game to game. So he does a good enough job managing it. And so if they could ever figure out a running game, or get healthy there, that'd be great on the offensive line. That's probably not going to happen. But I do think if they get Bosa back and they can just simply get a lead, Khalil Mack and Bosa, I do believe with Derwin James rolling around out there is a problem if they can get all that going.
Now imagine if the Chargers do the smart thing and they draft Deuce Vaughn at the end of the first round or trade into the second round early, or they get Bijan.
Can Bijan
Good Lord.
slide? Yeah, I just keep begging. In my mind, I keep telling myself that Bijan's going to slide, that Rashawn Slater will be back next year, and they can do nothing but draft, linemen and like for both sides of the ball, interior linemen on both sides of the ball for the rest of every single pick that they take, and I'd be fine. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, man. The rest of the NFL landscape, I think we're at the point of the year where, last time we talked, we were talking about guys, teams kind of making some noise and the playoff picture kind of forming. But I think after last week, we're definitely at the point where there's teams that will definitely make the playoffs. And then you have like two or three that are fighting for that last playoff spot, right? By this point in the game, your Kansas City, they're definitely in. They look great. Buffalo, they're going to get in. They look fantastic. And then you have teams like even my Baltimore Ravens, where if Lamar can come back healthy, that defense looks
Yeah, all of a sudden, right?
insane.
Yeah, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, yeah. And like kudos, that was, I mean, that was like the bigger story too. I mean, I know you said I mean, our defense put together one game in a row. Your defense is really seemingly starting to put it together. And if that unit's scary, then of course you have Lamar and anything's possible. So
Yeah.
that's the beauty of having that kind of quarterback. That's what the Lamars and the Herberts do is as soon as I'm out, if the defense plays well one week, I'm like, wait, so we have,
Yep.
because you have that guy. So
I'll
hopefully he
say
gets healthy.
this.
I'd like to see the Ravens make a run. I mean, I got nothing wrong with that.
I'll say this. That Roquan Smith trade has been one of the best trades like the Ravens might have ever done. He is insane. He is one of the best linebackers I've ever watched. The way he diagnoses plays, the way that he's unlocked Patrick Queen, like that linebacker
Yeah.
like duo is insane. And then you already have like the secondary where you have, Marlon Humphreys had a incredible year this year. He had a tough game last week, but like outside of that has had an incredible year. Marcus Peters is going to Marcus Peters. He's going to have one game where he's just a complete dumbass. And he's going to have moments of brilliance
He's
where
a
he
gambling
just,
man.
yeah, he gets a pick six. And then now Marcus Williams is back. Kyle Hamilton is playing exactly how everybody thought he would, being, the potential top 5 pick. And then that pass rush has been really good. Justin Houston is looking great. Jason Pierre-Paul is looking great. Tyus Bowser has been really good. And then they have not Jason, but they have Odafe Owe also there, and they're gonna bring on the kid from Michigan whenever he's ready. So yeah, man, Ravens could be a dangerous team. I think they're gonna for sure make the playoffs. I don't know if they're gonna make a lot of noise just because the offense is not great. But you never know. J.K. Dobbins looked really good last week, so if they just unlock that running game when Lamar gets back, hey, a good running game and an awesome defense. We've seen the Ravens do a lot with that in the past. Some of the other teams that are kind of making some noise out there. You obviously the Detroit Lions, believe it or not, are kind of in the playoff picture.
Hey, maybe that DirecTV package for the old future father-in-law wasn't such a bad idea after all.
Yeah, I mean, your future father-in-law has to be ecstatic because the Lions look like a wagon right now. I think what have they pulled off, like 4 wins in a row or something?
Yeah, or like 5 of the last 6, whatever. Yeah, there's somewhere they're streaking.
Yeah, dude, they look really good. Jared Goff apparently wasn't as much of the problem as we thought he was in LA. He's looking like a career renaissance. And that team could definitely make the playoffs if they keep it up. So they're a fun team. Looking at some other teams, the Bengals they're looking like they're a wagon again, right?
Yep.
Like Joe
Yep.
Burrow's insane. He's so good. That receiving core is bananas. And then once Jamar Chase returns to being Jamar Chase, like they're going to be just so freaking good. The Titans are looking like they're kind of falling with their wheels off. And then the Patriots and Jets are fighting for that one of those playoff spots as well, right?
Yep.
Then you look at the NFC, the Cowboys look strong as hell. The Eagles are incredible. The 49ers just beat the brakes off of the Buccaneers with Brock Purdy, Arizona kid, shout out.
Let's go, Brock.
Yeah, bring it home for the Valley, buddy.
Let's go.
You want to talk about that? Because I know your buddy has been on the Brock Purdy train for years.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say he's out of Perry High School. He was a guy that was kind of part of the same coaching tree, if you will, that I coached at from the high school programs. And dude, I mean, I swear, he just absolutely said, "This dude is just the dude," and like this kid just has it, whatever it is. And then I was really surprised. I mean, look, he won a ton at Perry, but Iowa State, just like that's not a place where I expect anybody to have any measure of success. But he did. He won a lot of games at Iowa State. He wasn't perfect, but I mean, it's an Iowa State program, so what could you really expect? And to just see him doing this, and I mean, this guy is my buddy's like over the moon. Like, it's his entire social media is just Brock Nation rise up. I mean, he's going like absolutely bonkers, and I can't blame him because the guy absolutely balled out. Like he looked.
Yeah.
That was the best version of Jimmy G that we would have seen all season, right? Like he absolutely played great. Like He threw the ball outside the numbers. He got the ball down the field. He completed short stuff. I mean, he played really well, and I don't know if it's like going to be a flash in the pan thing. I certainly hope not, because I'm genuinely rooting for the kid. But dude, that was awesome. So, but yeah, everybody's gonna go nuts. So Perry High School, gotta love it.
Rise up. Yeah. And that
Yeah,
defense in San Fran, it's been like this for a number of years now. They're
yeah.
incredible. That running game, CMC has been unlocked out there. If he can stay healthy, they're a dangerous team. And then you have the Seahawks right behind them, right? Geno
Uh,
coming down to earth a little bit, but they're still
yeah.
a decent team. If Kenneth Walker can come back and play healthy and play the way he was playing before the injury, like they can be a dangerous team, right? And then you have the NFC South. So
Dude,
not it's so bad.
they shouldn't be allowed to have a team. I mean, this is so bad. I mean, I know they're going to, and it's fine. And I'm not saying we need to go change the entire rule book, but it's so depressing.
Yeah, the Buccaneers are 6-7 and they're leading the division, and they got absolutely smoked by the 49ers, and they have been smoked by a number of teams this year.
I think I'm rooting for
So
Darnold's Panthers. Why not?
yeah, maybe, hey, let's go Pac-12, baby. I mean,
Yeah,
Baker's not there anymore, so
I'd love for them to make the playoffs and then they extend Darnold for like 3 years.
that would be the most Panthers thing in the world. So
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Baker, our guy Baker did win on third. That was like a long time ago now, but I forgot he came out of. I can't believe that happened either. Like how Raiders, come on, guys. Like what is going on?
the Raiders are such a shit show, dude. Like they spent more money than like any other team in free agency to go get Josh McDaniels, and Josh McDaniels is doing exactly what he did in Denver. So yeah, dude, it's insane. Baker leading a 97 or 96 yard drive to win the game. Good for him. We've only been talking about him for 12 months, so at
He's
least
only
we get to talk
14,
about
so
something positive.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it
So
feels like. Damn.
yeah. But yeah, man, it's been an incredible week for sports, whether it's, a sad story, a good story, or anything in between. I'm sure that we'll have some good stuff coming up. The NFL playoff picture will begin to kind of unfold itself more and more each week. Transfer portal for college football is going to be insane. The NBA is only going to get sweeter. And dude, it's just like we continue to say, sports is a 365-day passion, 365-day industry, and we are here to talk about it. So, guys, we just continue to ask if you like this podcast, if you love this podcast, you want more of this podcast, please continue to just share it with friends, family members, coworkers, whoever. Leave a rating, leave a comment. Check us out on social media. We're on Twitter. John's killing it there. I say it every week. We are pissing off Georgia fans on TikTok. Our Instagram's there. Our Facebook is there. Please interact with us. Tell us that we're an L podcast. I don't care. Just let us know you're listening. And yeah, just continue to listen. We are continually growing. We love it. And we hope to just continue to do that. So thank you so much. We will speak to you next week. John, do you have any parting words?
No, Metsy and Tucson's getting a live golf tournament. That's it. I
Oh
can't.
yeah.
There's so much we could have still talked about, but we did get to
What a
talk
week.
about like everything we wanted to talk about. This was definitely like one for us. If you're like in the movie business, it's one for the studio, one for us. We talked about our stuff this week.
Yeah.
We were selfish. We Suns, Chargers, Ravens. We did it all.
Yeah.
I wish more of it was upbeat, but nonetheless, thanks for letting us vent this week, and we'll come back with maybe a little more well-rounded palette next week that stretches
That's true.
our interest.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about those two things next week. The live tour. I'm sure John and I will probably make our way out there. That will probably be insane. And the World Cup, we'll have our champion crowned on Sunday. So we will definitely talk a little bit about that next week. So please tune in. And with that, have a great weekend. Be safe and enjoy all the sports going on. We'll talk to you later.